What if Cardano's secret weapon isn't Cardano at all? Now, I just uncovered a wild plan that could flood Cardano's ecosystem with billions of dollars. And it involves Bitcoin and even XRP. Now, it sounds crazy, right? But stick with me here because as an ADA holder myself, I nearly fell out of my chair when I heard this one. Now, as a fellow ADA holder, I know the roller coaster, years of big promises and slow deliveries. Now, Cardano has often kind of felt like the underdog, watching Ethereum and Solana soak up all of the DeFi glory. Now, I've had moments of doubt, wondering if I had just backed the wrong horse. But recently, I stumbled on a story that flipped my perspective. It started with a crypto conference in Singapore, where Cardano's founder, Charles Hoskinson, dropped a bit of a bombshell. He's aiming to plug Cardano into Bitcoin's trillion-dollar market and even tap into XRP. Yeah, Bitcoin and XRP, those other communities. Why? Well, it's actually to supercharge Cardano's DeFi ecosystem. The idea is pretty bold. Some might say it's insane, but if it works, it could actually catapult Cardano from a DeFi kind of laggard into the big leagues. And that's not all. I've been also experimenting with a new crypto tool that lets you earn crypto on your smartphone, but more on that soon. And there's also some buzz about a potential US spot ETF for ADA on the horizon. So there are so many open loops here, right? Bitcoin DeFi, XRP yield, phone-based mining, and an ADA ETF. That by the end of this story, you're going to see how all of these things tie together into a narrative of Cardano's possible comeback. Ready? Because let's dive into this adventure. Picture this. Right, it's Token 2049 conference in Singapore. Charles Hoskinson is on stage with Ran, that's the guy from some other YouTube channel I forget the name of. But here's quick context for that, right? These two had a little bit of a feud going on for many years. I believe Ran is a Solana maxi. So just seeing these two chat calmly kind of gets a lot of people's attention. Now, Hoskinson admits something that we all knew way back in the back, at least in the back of our minds, right? That Cardano has fallen behind some other chains in terms of DeFi. But it's true, right? It is. Now, at the time of that particular talk, Cardano's total value locked in DeFi was under $1 billion, while Solana was sitting at around $13 billion and Ethereum is near $100 billion. So by DeFi standards, Cardano is kind of the kid, picked last for the team. And Charles, being his kind of frank self, he owned up to it. Now, Ran asked the $1 million question, or in this case, $15 billion question. How's Cardano going to catch up? Now, Hoskinson's answer, Bitcoin DeFi. And at first I was like, wait, did he just hear that right? Bitcoin on Cardano. And he explained that this is Cardano's big chance to revolutionize its own ecosystem. Why? Because Bitcoin has this huge ocean of liquidity, right? And I don't want to say it's over $2 trillion because that's market cap. Market cap is not liquidity. Don't get those things confused, right? A lot of people think $2 trillion of value in a network equals liquidity. It's not, right? But there is $2 trillion of market cap for Bitcoin. And, hardly any of that is actually used in DeFi. So let's just think about that, right? Bitcoin is the largest cryptocurrency by market cap, but you can't do much with it in terms of at least on chain, except maybe hodl or transfer it. So it's kind of like a massive reservoir that's behind a dam. It's got hundreds of billions of dollars of liquidity that can't be tapped into. And it's just sitting there. Now, Hoskinson basically said, what if we crack open that dam and let Bitcoin's liquidity flow into Cardano? If Cardano could give Bitcoin holders a way to use their BTC in decentralized finance, i.e. lend it, borrow it against it, maybe even yield, right? Earn yield. On Cardano's network, that could be a bit of a game changer. Now, technically, how the heck would that work? Right, this is kind of where I nerded out a little bit. Both Bitcoin and Cardano use a rather similar accounting model under the hood. This is something that is called UTXO. This is the unspent transaction output. I know, geeky, right? But Cardano's version is the extended UTXO, or EUTXO for short. But the key thing here is that they share a rather common DNA, right? Hoskinson pointed out that because of this, you can actually write Cardano smart contracts that compile and run on Bitcoin. In plain English, Cardano smart contracts speak a language that Bitcoin can understand. Well, almost. Now, this isn't possible with Ethereum's accounting model so easily, but with Cardano and Bitcoin, it's like they have compatible blood types, right? That's structural advantage means that Cardano could potentially become a sort of DeFi bridge for Bitcoin. You'd effectively bring BTC over into Cardano's ecosystem, likely via some kind of sidechain or wrapping, though he didn't actually dive into all of the technical plumbing in that particular chat. The bottom line is this. If you can connect Bitcoin to Cardano, it could bring billions of dollars in value and millions of users into the Cardano ecosystem. I want to caveat that with how many users that might be, because the number of Bitcoin wallets doesn't reflect the number of users. If you actually take a look at the on-chain data, you would notice that there's not actually that many wallets that hold significant amounts of Bitcoin, and a lot of it's just dust, probably forgotten about. So we would say probably it's actually more like hundreds of thousands of users than millions of users. But people like to exaggerate, and I'm here to cut through all the bullshit. So I guess when Hoskinson said billions, that was with a B, a lot of people's jaws dropped just hearing it, because Cardano's big break comes from the very crypto that was once seen as maybe, I guess, a bit anti kind of thesis. But Hoskinson didn't stop at Bitcoin. He also talked about another sleeping giant, XRP. Now, XRP isn't usually mentioned in the same sentence as Cardano because they are totally different beasts and different communities, and sometimes they're even at odds, right? But here's the angle. XRP has over $100 billion in market cap value, yet almost none of it is yet earning any yield just yet. I know there are a couple of platforms that have just launched, but for the purpose of this video, we're just going to say there's not really XRP yields, right? And none of it's really being used in DeFi yet. So it's just kind of there for payments and for speculation, but not really much DeFi action. Now, Hoskinson basically said, why not create DeFi opportunities for XRP holders too? Give them a way to put that XRP to work, earning interest or providing liquidity. And that's a massive untapped market too, right? Now, again, misunderstandings and misconceptions with market cap, value, and liquidity. Because a lot of people will say there's almost $100 billion worth of XRP just floating around yield-free, right? But actually, that's not technically true. There's fractions of that actually in liquidity. So value and market cap value is different to liquidity. So you can bring the value over and you can have TVL, which is just, again, a theoretical number, not an actual liquidity-based value. But if you understand how all of that works and you understand impermanent losses, all those kind of DeFi terminologies, then you'll understand what I'm talking about here. A little bit complicated. I don't generally talk about the complicated stuff on these videos, just to make it a little bit easy to understand. But nonetheless, I'm correcting some of these things that I'm seeing in terms of the articles, the news outlets that are just basically saying you've got trillions of dollars of liquidity. You don't have trillions of dollars of liquidity. The market's a lot thinner than that on liquidity, right? We need to understand the basics of economics 101 before kind of thinking you're going to have trillions of dollars in Cardano. That's not how this is going to work. So you'll have tens of billions of dollars coming from the XRP community potentially. But even other platforms like Flare, for example, they're targeting significantly lower amounts of XRP in that kind of liquidity sense. So just understand that it's very unlikely that Cardano is going to capture 100 billion from XRP. It's just unrealistic. So we should probably curb the enthusiasm a little bit in places. Anyway, if Cardano can be a home for XRP in terms of DeFi, and a whole chunk of that value does move over into Cardano's ecosystem, well, I think we are setting the stage for some pretty phenomenal things. So let's combine all of these ideas then, right? Bitcoin DeFi plus XRP DeFi on Cardano. Now add another buzzword that Hoskinson threw in, real-world asset tokenization. Again, really interesting concepts and a lot of misconceptions around this, so let's get into what happened. So Cardano's also eyeing things like tokenized real estate, commodities, etc., which, is a growing trend in crypto, right? Put all of that together, Bitcoin's hundreds of billions in liquidity, XRP's tens of billions in liquidity and real-world assets, right? Now, let's imagine even if a small percentage of that moves onto Cardano, Hoskinson suggested that a combination could push Cardano's total value locked to between $10 and $15 billion. So we're talking about a potential 20x increase from where it is right now. To put that into perspective, at $15 billion TVL, Cardano would be leapfrogging Solana's 12 to 13 billion in DeFi ecosystem. Now, it still wouldn't catch up to Ethereum's $98 billion colossal kind of amount, but flipping Solana in DeFi would be a pretty huge statement. Because remember, Solana and Cardano have had this unofficial rivalry, I think mainly driven from influencers and marketing pushes. Maybe Solana paid for that, who knows, because it is heavily centralized from the VC side. So you can never really argue that. But anyway, sometimes a bit of a crypto Twitter war. Anyway, about who's the better platform is generally what the argument is, right? Why go for, you see the arguments of Solana's better than Cardano or Cardano is better than Solana, all that kind of stuff. And you see all the verses and all that kind of nonsense. Tribalism, as they kind of call it. Anyway, if Cardano can manage to overtake Solana in DeFi because it tapped into Bitcoin and XRP's liquidity, well, that would be a bit of a plot twist of the year, right? Now, hearing all of this, the skeptic in me has to perk up. Is this real or is it just hopium? Hoskinson has always been a bit of a visionary, sometimes to a bit of a fault. Cardano is no stranger to ambitious promises either. So I'm not declaring mission accomplished by any means. But this time, the plan leverages other networks' strengths and massive capital floating around instead of purely, waiting on Cardano's slow grind of organic growth. It's kind of like saying, if we can't beat them outright, then we'll join them, or rather invite them over. It's kind of a clever kind of judo move, right? Use the weight of Bitcoin and XRP to boost Cardano. And technically it's plausible because of that shared UTXO, lineage and things like sidechains. Maybe something like the recently proposed Midnight or other sidechains could technically facilitate it. Now, what's also encouraging here is the shift in tone. This is the more important thing. Hoskinson was notably collaborative here, right? Talking about bridging communities that historically just didn't mix much with Cardano. Even him settling beef with Ran was quite a surprising move during that interview. It was maybe symbolic to some. It's kind of like Cardano is opening up the doors, saying let's work together rather than we'll do our own thing. And as an ADA holder, that gives me some hope. I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole feud stuff. So we're not going to go into the details of the feuds over the years. But yeah, I guess there is a little sliver of hope here, although I'm not optimistic that it's going to last long with certain individuals. Now, it's a sign that maybe there is some maturity here, right? But we'll see. Crypto shouldn't be tribal after all, right? If Cardano can link arms with Bitcoin and XRP communities for mutual benefit, well, that is going to be good for everyone. Maybe even Solana will join the party too. And around the same time I was digesting Hoskinson's master plan, if we want to call it that, I found myself tinkering with a new project in the crypto space, right? That kind of embodies this idea of connecting worlds. And it's called Unity. Now, Unity Nodes is strictly a Cardano, well, it's actually a World Mobile and Minutes Network project. Now, World Mobile or at least started life out as a Cardano project and it has now gone multi-chain. It has a World Mobile chain, funny enough. Now, it has a connection to Cardano's ecosystem through the World Mobile token, and if you haven't heard of World Mobile, well, it is a blockchain project that is aiming to deliver internet and telecom services in a decentralized way, and it's closely associated with Cardano in the kind of long-term vision. So they even built parts of it using Cardano's tech. Anyway, Unity Nodes is a bit like a partnership between Minutes Network and World Mobile. And it basically allows regular people like you and me to turn our smartphones into mini crypto nodes supporting a mobile network. And in return, you earn crypto rewards for the service that you provide. It's kind of like mining or maybe even staking. But you're not actually validating blockchain transactions. You're actually helping run a distributed telecoms network with your phone's idle resources. How cool is that? Now, they are limited in number of Unity master node NFTs. There's only a few thousand that exist. So there's a little bit of scarcity and early mover advantage at play here. Now, I heard about Unity nodes a fair while ago, and it immediately caught my attention because I love the idea of passive income via devices that I already own or can acquire quite cheaply. So instead of just mining Bitcoin on a power-hungry rig or staking in a pool, Unity actually lets you earn cryptocurrency by verifying the telecommunications grid from your phone. And you get paid crypto for it, right? Now, the rewards, they come in various different forms. You can actually choose to be paid out in major coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, or ADA, amongst others like World Mobile Token or even Minutes Token, right? When I learned that, I knew that I had to try it. Getting paid in ADA for running a node on my phone. Sign me up. So I went ahead and I bought a Unity Master Node license NFT. Now, it wasn't cheap, it was a few $1,000s, but I see it as an investment and a bit of an experiment. Right, the Unity app isn't live just yet for the node operation just yet, right? But I am gearing up for it for when it launches. I've got a small army of devices here, about 10 of them, ready to deploy in my Unity node test. Now, my plan is to connect these 10 phones to the network and let them just do their thing, earn some crypto, right? I've opted to receive a bit of a portion of my rewards in ADA, along with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP to diversify. Then here's the kind of devious little part. I'm going to take that ADA and I'm going to stake it to my own Cardano stake pool. Shout out to the cheeky pool with the ticker CHEEK, CHEEK. And I'm going to be earning even more ADA on top of that. Right, essentially, I'm looping the rewards back into growing my ADA holdings. It's kind of like a crypto feedback loop, right? The phones are going to be mining crypto. It's going to pay me in ADA. I'm going to stake the ADA and I'm going to earn even more ADA. You kind of like the idea. It's the kind of stacking strategies that make me just a little bit extra giddy, I'm not going to lie. Now, let me be super clear here. This is not me telling you to go and throw your money at Unity or anything crazy. I'm just a curious content creator who's actually willing to experiment on myself and share the journey with you guys. Now, there are some risks, costs, and nothing is going to be guaranteed returns, right? It's kind of like everything in crypto, right? In fact, this is probably a perfect time for an important disclaimer. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Phew. Okay, that's the serious hat off, fun hat back on. Now, you might be thinking, why on earth did you bring up Unity nodes in this Cardano story? Well, it's because it actually highlights a much bigger theme, connectivity and innovation. Right, the crypto space is evolving in jaw-dropping ways, right? We're seeing blockchains reaching out to each other like Cardano tapping into Bitcoin and XRP, and projects reaching beyond traditional cryptos like World Mobile merging telecoms with blockchain using everyday devices. Now, Cardano itself is there's always no longer just that kind of slow chain doing peer-reviewed research. It's actually activating on multiple different fronts. Now, if you want to learn more about Unity, then I'm going to include a link in the description down below to the Unity website. You can read their light paper, you can review their rewards calculator, which, by the way, if even that is a fraction of accuracy to that thing, this is going to be insane. I can see so many people quitting their 9-to-5 jobs to run these Unity nodes on the back of that calculator alone. It's one of those things that you have to do your own research. You have to understand the risks that are involved, and you have to understand all the mechanics of it. So I do urge you all to do your own research before jumping into anything like the Unity nodes. But this is looking like a promising little side experiment for myself. So I'm excited to share all the details with you over the next several months. Now, Hoskinson also shared some general developments that gave me some confidence for Cardano too. For one, Cardano's scaling solution, Hydra, is now making progress. This is a layer 2 that could potentially handle up to 1 million transactions per second in the future. Just imagine that. 1 million TPS is like sci-fi level scaling, which could put Cardano at the forefront of high-speed blockchain transactions if achieved. Then there's Midnight, a new Cardano sidechain focused on data protection and privacy. According to Charles, Midnight has already snagged over 100 partnerships, including big names like Brave, that's the web browser, blockchain.com, and even bitcoin.com. That is significant because it shows companies are interested in building on or using Cardano's extended system. And in governance news, Cardano's community just approved its first on-chain treasury budget for funding projects, with a huge treasury of over $1 billion worth available for development grants. In short, while Cardano admittedly missed the last DeFi wave, it's gearing up for a major comeback on multiple levels: technical, financial, and community-driven. Now, here's the big picture that gets me dramatically hopeful, in true kind of ADA holder fashion, that is. Cardano is positioning itself to harness opportunities beyond just itself. Right? The underdog is training with the heavy weights. If Bitcoin DeFi on Cardano becomes a reality, we could see billions of dollars streaming into Cardano's ecosystem, providing liquidity for new decentralized applications, boosting transaction volumes, and yes, potentially driving ADA's price much higher due to increased demand. Some analysts are already speculating that if Cardano pulls off the Bitcoin and XRP DeFi play, then ADA could reach valuations like $10 or even $20. Optimistic, I know, but it has been floated out there. Now, I'm not here to make bold predictions or price predictions. I just treat those numbers as thinkable, but not bankable, right? Still, just hearing $20 ADA in a kind of semi-serious context is enough to give an ADA holder some chills. It shows the scale of what people could think, or at least think could actually happen in the future. And all of the timing of all of this, it's kind of like multiple storylines converging for a potential grand finale. Because guess what? On the more traditional finance side, we're on the cusp of a potential US spot ETF for Cardano. Yeah, you heard that right. You've seen Bitcoin ETFs and Ethereum ETFs making headlines. Now, Cardano's ADA might get its turn too. Now, in fact, by the end of this very month, October 2025, the SEC was expected to give a final verdict on 2 Cardano spot ETF applications. The market was buzzing about it until we saw the US shutdown, which has delayed things a little bit. I saw one estimate, though, saying that there's a 92% chance of an approval for this, which is insanely high, maybe too high, but it does show the optimism. And if a Cardano ETF does get approved, it would open the floodgates for institutional money to pour into Cardano's ADA, without those investors having to directly handle the crypto itself. It's kind of like opening Cardano to an entire class of big-pocketed investors who were previously hesitant. That could bring a surge of buying and more legitimacy. Combine that with the narrative that Cardano might suddenly host the next big DeFi wave from Bitcoin and XRP. Can you imagine the 1-2 kind of punch there? I kind of have to pinch myself here. A year ago, we were hoping for a basic dApp on Cardano to gain some traction. Now we're, talking about onboarding the largest crypto assets and one of the other largest communities onto Cardano, right? Plus a potential ETF, major tech upgrades. It kind of feels like the plot went from slow burn to thriller in Cardano's universe. And of course, I remain cautiously optimistic. Not every grand plan is going to pan out. The SEC could still kind of say no to the ETFs. I mean, they do love to keep us on our toes, right? Bitcoin DeFi might actually face some technical or liquidity hurdles. Maybe XRP, folks stick with their own upcoming hooks, like the Flare network, which is providing some XRP DeFi options already. And generally, execution matters, right? Cardano has to actually build these bridges in a user-friendly way. But here's my takeaway. For the first time in a while, I feel a renewed spark of hope and excitement as a Cardano ADA holder. The narrative around Cardano is changing from "why aren't you doing anything" to "wow, look what they are attempting." Right? It's like watching the montage of a sports movie where the underdog team starts pulling out new tricks and training even harder for the big match. Right? Cardano is aligning its strength, like the UTXO architecture, with external opportunities, Bitcoin's liquidity, XRP's community, real-world asset tokenization, to potentially leap forward. And I'm personally not just sitting on the sidelines. I'm getting involved where I can, be it by running the stake pool, Cheek, or experimenting with Unity nodes and other innovations, right? Because I want to be ready if and when this ecosystem explodes. Maybe in a year or two, we're going to look back at this moment as a bit of a turning point, when Cardano went from a slow tortoise to a, well, still a tortoise, but one with maybe a jetpack strapped to its shell, courtesy of some Bitcoin and XRP rocket fuel. And if things don't pan out as we'd hoped, hey, I'm still going to be here for the tech and the community. That free educational Discord, the server that we run, the link in the description, by the way, is still full of ADA holders and crypto enthusiasts who stick together through thick and thin. If you haven't joined yet, then consider this your personal invite. Come join, learn, share, and vibe with us. It's completely free and one of the best ways to stay sharp in this fast-moving space. Now, before I wrap up, I've got to mention a couple of ways to keep the lights on here at the channel. So if you're into trading or just looking for a solid crypto platform, then I do have some affiliate links for several different crypto exchanges in the description below, right? BitGet and Blowfin are a couple of my chosen choices, so the ones that I use pretty regularly. And using all those links actually to sign up and trade via those exchange links actually supports the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. And frankly, it helps me spend more time doing deep research and crazy experiments like the ones that I've shared today. Now, Blowfin is a slightly newer exchange that I have been checking out over the last few months. And yes, that is also an affiliate link down below for those guys. And BitGet is another platform that I have hooked up to TradingView to trade directly from TradingView. It's a platform that has been solid for many traders. Also, the link below is affiliate kickback to the channel. So anyway, I always want to be transparent about all of those things. Those are paid affiliate links, and any commission I earn goes right back into making this content and building our community. Now, if you have found this video insightful or at least a little entertaining, you can do me a favor by smashing the like button and hitting the subscribe button and joining me on this wild crypto journey. Why don't you stay tuned, stay hopeful, and I'll catch you all in the next one.